then this Supreme Court with Sotomayor and others comes in and says, if the dollars flow, you have to do this and this and this and this. Private Christian education can be violated pretty easily by the government. So be careful that in the name of wanting something good like a school voucher that you bring the federal government into the classroom. We need to protect the sanctity of private Christian education, home education, and have a good, strong public education system. And reading is step one to improving public education.
Okay. You mentioned homeschoolers, and that's really flows perfectly into my next question. A lot of homeschool students would like to be able to participate in state-sponsored sports, and they say they pay the taxes for those schools. They should, if their kids want to play football or basketball, they should be able to get on some of those organized teams. Would you support allowing homeschool students the ability to participate
Brother,
in sports?
you write the bill and I'll sign it.
Thank you very much. Okay, one big question a lot of people have with being able to really change education is the teacher tenure system. And a lot of people say, hey, we can't fire bad teachers hardly at all. It's virtually impossible. Some people have thought about saying things, putting them under sort of the similar protections that the local employees of the local federal employees, local state employees, local employees have, but not giving them teacher tenure type protections. Would you support changing the teacher tenure program?
Well, it needs to be changed, and I don't want to get in a fight with the teachers' unions, especially not this early. I ultimately probably will have some conflict. But you know, one thing that like I admire about Dr. Kathleen Ayers in Putnam County, who basically challenged the education institutions there on unions, she said, if we benchmark in kindergarten whether a child is reading or not, and they're not reading, we're going to pull them out of class for an hour a day, give them direct instruction in phonics to teach them how to read so that when they go to third grade and start reading for content, they can read. The unions didn't like it because they're telling them what they have to do. But guess what? They like it now because they're #1 in the state in corrective action and success. So we have got to bring the teachers' unions to a better place to understand, listen, we're just interested in the bottom line. We're not interested in some kind of self-protection thing, but just the bottom line. As education improves, we'll all be on the same team, but we've got to have a better bottom line result on basic education to me, and it starts with reading K-3, step 1.
Okay, education funding. It's a big issue, and as governor, you'll have a lot of ability to prioritize how you focus your money and where you're going to get results. Now, obviously, everybody say, I'm for everything, and I want to spend every dollar and give everybody everything they want. But you can't do it. A lot of it's prioritizing. Right. So next series of questions I'm going to ask you are dealing with how would you prioritize, this is important, this is less important, this is maybe more important. I know you want everything and everybody wants everything, but with limited dollars, would you put more money into hiring more teachers or giving teachers that we do have pay raises?
Tough question. Probably demanding more of the teachers we have to try to more properly reward success from the teachers as they go forward without necessarily hiring better teachers. And I would say that it's probably better to train the teachers we have better than to bring new teachers on when the ones we have need better training. And I hear that from school superintendents that say we need to be able to train our teachers better because they're more than just educators, frankly. They have to be sociologists, psychologists, law enforcement officers, and everything else.
Okay. Do you support the governor's pre-K program?
The governor's pre-K program would be very different under a Wamp administration. We would have every daycare center, local governments. We would have the 3-star program under my administration would require local governments to be a 3-star community to have a written plan on pre-K reading through daycare centers, local government support, foundation support, not new government spending and not new government programs, but we got to have kids reading better when they enter school. The pre-K program of the governor has gotten people sidetracked on Head Start, pre-K, government programs, but we need grassroots mobilization of all the resources, including foundations, to have children reading better earlier when they enter school. So I would redo it all.
Okay. Would you support more pre-K or more funding for pre-K, obviously, or would you ask for more money to go to K through 12 education?
Well, I would say the focus needs to be on K-3 right now, because if we lose them by 3rd grade, they don't catch up. And so when I say funding and focus, it needs to be on basic reading, K-3, put the focus right there. If we have them reading proficiently in the 3rd grade, they're actually going to do real well. at adolescence. If they're not reading proficiently, they never catch up, and they're the 28,000 that drop out of school, and it's a negative cycle. So I think we got to hold the line on K-12. Bredeson's tried to hold the line on K-12. My kids just both went through higher education. I know how that works. Is he just lets tuition rise there because he's holding the line on K-12 in terms of the education pie, and you're probably going to get there as well. But I think K-3 is the most important.
Okay. Pre-K or school infrastructure. With the lottery scholarship, we have money, and some of the things we have options of saying we can put it into pre-K programs or we can put it into school infrastructure.
Yeah.
Limited dollars. Which would you prioritize more, school infrastructure or pre-K?
Infrastructure can be done by the local counties with bond issues as much as possible. When you say pre-K, again, I would like to increase funding on early childhood reading, but not necessarily the pre-K program as it's currently structured. I think that you could actually have grants available to local governments with a written plan if they'll access foundation support, have local government support for making sure that kids can read by the time they get to kindergarten. And if they can't read, we're going to find it out quickly and catch them up and have corrective action. But the notion pre-K is like saying Head Start. Some people have a negative view of that. And I'm going to change the preparation for kids going to school in Tennessee because it needs to be changed.
So with the dollars, are the dollars going to go to pre-K or the infrastructure?
Split it.
Split it. Okay. Another thing we have with the lottery scholarship is the ability to add in change scholarships. Would you say, hey, we need to prioritize more towards scholarships, which a lot of people said, hey, that was the whole reason we had the lottery in the first place. Would you say we need more money going to scholarships or the pre-K program?
Scholarships, but we also don't need to lower the standards so that more kids have access to college under the Hope Scholarship. Keep your standards high. Frankly, they got to have a target that if they keep their grades up, they keep that scholarship. When you lower it, you don't have the same kind of success rate of how many of them are actually graduating and using the lottery scholarship money. When you lower the standards, they don't stay in school, and we don't want that because then the money is not used to the maximum capability, but give it to the students that need it for college scholarships.
Okay. Sometimes when we have large amounts of money, we have an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to put more money into each scholarship. Each scholarship's going to get a little bit more money to cover the expenses. Or they say we can have more scholarships, but we'll have to we can lower the standards a little bit, but we'll give more people a scholarship.
More people, that makes sense there, because I can tell you that as a parent, in my opinion, $4,000 maximum scholarship for a University of Tennessee student is a very, very, very helpful. I mean, it's unbelievable. It makes the university system in our state the best value for higher education in America. I believe that. And I just had one graduate on it, and I have another one that's halfway through.
Okay. A lot of people say we should change the way we do our scholarship system. Instead of going to a merit-based system where it's everybody who gets a 3.0, right. We should have some sort of factor in there for need-based, for really poor people, so they should get a special exemption, maybe have a lower standard. Would you say we need to have scholarships based on merit or need?
Well, I think,
or a combination of the two.
You start at need-based and then work your way up. I do think that makes sense because the economically deprived need the scholarship money more. I hate to say this, but it's true because I never have bought a lottery ticket, and I would not have voted for the lottery. But it's a regressive tax, as you know. It punishes the people that play it are the ones that can least afford it. So the money ought to go back to them, which would be a need-based approach.
Okay. A lot of people in higher ed say, hey, we've been getting a short shift under this governor. He's pretty much thrown us to the wolves. And, you know, it's caused us to raise tuition.
Right.
A lot of people say, well, and the governor has put the money into K through 12 or lower pre-K. A lot of people say, continue on with that system. Other people say, higher ed needs the help. Where would you be? Would you say higher ed, raise your tuitions, or would you say, you know, you have the ability to raise your tuitions, or would you say I'm going to put it in K through 12?
Well, we're not going to have new taxes. So starting with that and knowing that we're about capped out on the sales tax, you basically have to protect K-12 as much as possible and let higher education use the flexibility of tuition to fund it. But I think what we're going to see is before I ever take office, you're going to see Governor Bredeson, with your help, reform higher ed. And when he reforms higher ed, there is going to be a savings because I think there is duplication. They're like little fiefdoms in higher ed, and I think he's going to reform it. And the briefs that I've had look to me like a responsible approach. I think that's going to happen before I ever take office. Then we're going to look at higher ed, and we'll be able to have a better picture of what the needs are. But they have the safety valve of tuition, which K-12 doesn't have.
Okay. Illegal immigration, hot button issue, I'm sure, at the federal level as well as at the state level.
Yeah.
There are things that the state can do that the federal government cannot.